The Baltimore Ravens are 6-5, above 500 for the first time this year. Lots and lots of stuff to look forward to for the Ravens team.
Well, they're past 500. We recognize there are 3-game stretch coming on up. Kadri Ismail here, AFC North, and it looks like it's going to be the Bengals, Steelers, Bengals.
And I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. And look, this Ravens team, they are in the AFC North lead. They've defied all the odds on this 5-game win streak to get back to above 500. But there are still some more questions this team definitely does have to answer, including how Lamar Jackson has looked these past couple of weeks. We'll talk about all that and more coming up on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
On Ravens flock, welcome to another edition of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. This is Sam Njoku, joined as always with Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail. We're here talking Ravens football. The Ravens pick up the dub over the New York Jets. Didn't look pretty at all, but they do get the job done. Vibes are high, but also, as Kevin mentioned before the start of the show, lots of things to discuss here with this Ravens offense in general. I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We're going to be talking a lot about this Ravens-Jets game, but we're also going to talk about the activation of Emory Jones. Lots of people waiting on Emory Jones to come on the field post that activation, but not to be. We'll discuss what that means for the Ravens moving forward. We'll preview the Ravens versus Bengals game because the Ravens have a quick turnaround. Thursday night, Thanksgiving night, the Ravens have a chance to even solidify more this league goal. 3-0 in the AFC North of this first Bengals contest. 4 games of the last 6 will be against AFC North foes. But first, we'll talk about the Ravens game against the Jets, where they do pick up the victory. Kevin, I'll start with you. The Ravens offense struggled against the Browns. You thought you'd see a better performance from this offense against the Jets team that lost Quentin Williams, lost Sauce Gardner, and the trade deadline. They still looked a little, slow, at least in the first half, I would say. What are your thoughts about this offense overall?
Yeah, I mean, the first half was abysmal. It just was. And whether it be Lamar not looking right, the run game not being able to get anything going, drops by receivers, routes not developing well, offensive line play, just everything kind of set itself up to be the result of what that first half was. And I think while they got stuff going a little bit more in the second half, they're able to take advantage of some things. I mean, the Ravens offense is not going to win many games continuing to play like this. And, we certainly heard some of the players talk about that post game. But, it's just rough. And, the big story is Lamar Jackson. This was the first game where we knew something was off with Lamar and they didn't look great in that Cleveland game and whatnot. And look, in this game, Lamar was missing some throws he probably should have hit on and, didn't look like himself. But this was the first game to me where it truly was like, oh, wow, for the entirety of this game, you could tell like he was getting up gingerly. He was walking gingerly. Like something is clearly very off here with Lamar. And, he's gutting it out. He's fighting through it. And, clearly he's healthy enough to play in the games. But now you have a short week against Cincinnati and need him for that game too. You need him for every game this season moving forward. But, is he going to truly have enough time, even with that mini bye, to fully heal up? I mean, we know no one's at 100%. He's not going to be fully healed. But, for now against the Jets defense, it is not the Cleveland defense. But they certainly were playing like it early. And, the Jets came into this game kind of like a middling to poor defense, 20th in the NFL in run defense, 19th in pass defense, not anything all that special. Plus you mentioned the fact they didn't have Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner anymore in this contest. So, things started to pick up a little bit at the second half, but, definitely some more questions in this one that the Ravens offense gave us.
72 yards total in the first half is just deplorable. It will not get anything done when it comes to playoff style football. Looking at the AFC in general, you see teams that are extremely competitive. You see teams like the New England Patriots who beat the Bengals. You see teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers who, they went toe-to-toe with Chicago. Chicago is a hot team right now. Thank goodness the Ravens caught them at the right time. but you're also looking at a defense that can get after the quarterback, which unfortunately it didn't work out in Pittsburgh's favor, which I'm glad, but they still got a defense. Have defense will travel. You then go outside of the division and you look at the broader scope. We talked about the Patriots, but you're also looking at a team that is clawing back and forth in the Kansas City Chiefs. They get a big victory in overtime versus the Colts, but the Colts, they look the part and they are going to be making some noise. Look at Buffalo. Buffalo still reeling over their defeat on the primetime stage with all their sacks. I think it was like 8 sacks. I think you talk about the hot tub and cold tub treatment. My goodness, Josh Allen probably still sitting there icing himself down. Lamar Jackson is, as you said, KO, not the Lamar Jackson we're used to seeing. Saw him in the locker room afterwards. Yeah, he's just, man, just like, yep, he's there. He's walking around, and it's not like he's mopey or anything along those lines, but he just doesn't seem that like usual alpha walking spirited self. You saw a Derrick Henry that when we were talking to him as the pool of reporters were, he was like just not having it. Very prickly is what I would call it. Very just salty about how things kind of are, and I don't blame him. I mean, you're talking about being in the red zone. What? I mean, they were it was 4 of 5 opportunities that they were in the red zone. And no, excuse me, 2 of 5. I said 4 or 5. I'm generous. I'm just giving that they ain't have, but they only got in twice, and you were in there 5 times. And we talked about them having to improve. They have to have a level of physicality. They just don't. They don't have that level of physicality to really just be dominant up front. Roger Rosengarten talked to us. We heard from Ronnie Stanley. We heard from Tyler Linderbaum, and they just recognize that it's a work in progress, but it's late in the season it's a work in progress. So I think bigger picture, mother of pearl. Here comes the Bengals. Lots and lots and lots of work to be done. The good news is, on the flip side of things, if we want to say it real quickly, is that the defense, and this is something we could chop up as well, but the defense has certainly, in this 5-game win streak, they've stepped up each and every week. And you can hear it in all the different guys when we speak to them, how they are encouraged by their play, how they want to have a higher level of expectations, how they're holding one another accountable. So I think from a bigger picture standpoint defensively, we're seeing some good things from this defense, and that's something that at least you can hang your hat on if I'm the defense and what it looks like. Special teams wise, number one special teams in the league. The Jets were. Nick Moore, he was on our squad show. He talked about the challenges that was going to present. Did my man Jordan Stout just punch his ticket to the Pro Bowl? I mean, however they're going to call it the Pro Bowl, but Pro Bowler or an ability even to sneak into the All-Pro conversation, because homeboy was kicking it today and nullifying any level of expectations from their returners. So, Tyler, again, he got to work on placing the ball down there in the new kickoff return. But as far as his ability to kick the ball through the uprights, on point as well. But dang, Jordan Stout, mother of pearl, that looked awesome.
Great call, because we did have Nick Moore to talk about how great that Jets special teams was, and for Jordan Stout to kick a 74-yarder, tied the franchise record, followed that up with a 67-yarder that was even more beautiful in my opinion than the 74-yarder. Yeah, he looks like he might be knocking his ticket to the All-Pro now, to maybe even the Pro Bowl, and that means that Nick Moore, again, I'm on the Nick Moore hype train, getting that guy to get him into the Pro Bowl. He deserves it, because he's been a big part of the growth of Tyler Loop, as well as what Jordan Stout has become this year. But yeah, it's definitely tough to think about how this defense has turned it around. Special teams is turning the corner as well. And the offense, which looked every bit as good as we thought they'd look at the beginning of the season, has begun to stutter a little bit. Now, again, we assume that's because of Lamar Jackson and his health, but it could also be a part of the run game not being able to get things going, even though in the red zone, they were able to punch it in Derrick Henry twice in the red zone. So that's a good sign to see. But overall, the run game has been at least bare minimum, you could call it, sporadic offensively, for that run game. Kevin, when you look at this run game, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Because I believe defense travels, as Q mentioned, but you need a running game to go along with a good defense for you to have success in the postseason. We've seen that time and time again. You saw it with the Chiefs in the AFC Championship 2 years ago against Baltimore. You need to have that. Do we have any semblance of hope that Derrick Henry could be that guy? Or are we looking at number 34, Keaton Mitchell, who continues to show flashes of speed on the offense?
I think Keaton does deserve more touches, but this run game goes as the offensive line goes. I don't care who you have back there. If you can't get push up front, if you can't open up those rushing lanes, there's not a lot that anybody can do. I mean, Keaton, I guess, is actually one player that can kind of squeeze through a little crevice and go. But, for Derrick Henry, his play style, he needs a little bit of time on these plays to get going. Where, Derrick's like a train, right? Where he kind of starts, gets momentum. The more momentum he gets, the harder he is to bring down. But he's not able to get a lot of momentum. It felt like it on the watch along. I said this. They were in 2nd and 6 on like every second down, it felt like. And then the second half, it was 2nd and 7. It was just like they couldn't get a lot going on those first down runs. And it was just difficult. Where essentially it got to the point where they were in that like 3rd and 15. And I was like, they have them right where they want them because, they haven't been able to convert on some of those short opportunities where I trust them more to get a 3rd and 15 than I do and they converted on the Andrews PI. So it's like those types of things where Derrick got 21 carries in this game. Keaton got 2. I think that should be, you're not trying to take away Derrick's bell cow status. I don't think that's the right decision. I think that Derrick still, because I've seen the conversations, is he washed? No, I don't think Derrick Henry's washed. But I do believe that, getting Keaton some more touches. And again, like the one run that he had is not going to show up on the box score because of the holding penalty by Linderbaum. But like those are the types of plays, like him getting to the outside, showing that burst where Henry takes more time to get going. But then once he gets going, he's impossible to bring down. With Keaton, it's much more like gets the ball in your face bursts, like immediately right out of the gate, can immediately sink through that hole or go wherever you need him to go. So I think using those guys in tandem, that to me is what's going to be the most effective moving forward. Not, I'm not saying, all right, give Keaton 15 carries a game. Not going to happen when Derrick's out there on the field. But using those guys together a little bit more than they have, I think would be more effective for this offense because it just switches things up and it feels like teams just know when that Henry run is coming and they're loading up in that box and, they're overloading. Offensive line guys aren't holding their blocks or, whatever you can say about that group. I love the blocking that we saw in that last Derrick Henry touchdown by the O-line. They opened up that crease, Rosengarten sealed his guy inside, Ricard comes over. Like those are the types of plays that this team needs more of where, Derrick just being Derrick can fall forward and pick up 2 yards. That's how big he is. But it feels like they're not getting the push up front that they need, which has been their identity for years.
Interesting because we're talking 98 total yards rushing. That should be by one player. Anybody named other than Derrick Henry. Derrick should be well over 100 yards plus. You talk about that touchdown that Henry had, and literally the Jets D-line were slanting that way. Now, I'm not tripping, but that's easy for a offensive line to block down when the defense is slanting in that direction. Then you also look at, Pancake Pat. Pancake Pat Pat Ricard had an amazing block that allowed D Hen to get into the end zone. They asked Derrick about that, and Derrick was like, so, like, he didn't really even care. And is because he is like, we didn't do enough. We're not doing enough. He knows that they're not doing enough. They know it's not good enough. And that's the frustration, I think. We had, what was it? Zachary Hendrickson, he's like, it's week 12. We're still talking about bad O-line play, putting 8 at risk for a serious injury. Like, bruh, we put him at serious risk for injury week 1 against the doggone Bills. Then you come back and whenever we played the Lions at home and doggone them dudes was just harassing him there. And then you look at the Chiefs game, he was getting harassed again. And yeah, so this entire year he's just been, under the gun and everybody just getting at him. So I think bigger picture wise, yeah, like it is unacceptable to look at this Ravens team and see the type of production or lack thereof that we are seeing and expect that, yeah, it is this late in the season, and now we are finally having, some level of change. It's just there is no change. I mean, they won 5 in a row, and I think the defense, when you listen to those guys in the locker room, I think a lot of it is them playing and bailing out the offense. That Superman cape that Lamar has right now, the kryptonite is wearing him down. That's just how it is.
That's absolutely right. I believe you. And unfortunately, as you mentioned, there's only 6 games left in the regular season. Time has flown. The Ravens have 6 contests. And again, I mentioned that 4 of those 6 contests are against AFC North foes, 2 against the Bengals. In fact, they'll play the Bengals, Steelers, and then Bengals again. And then that final game of the season against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So the Ravens, even though they picked up these 5 wins, they need to get their act together because they're huge games. I mean, borderline postseason type atmosphere games coming up for this Ravens team. If they don't show out like they did in the beginning of the season, that offense especially, then they're in for a world of hurt. Hopefully that defense helps bail them out, but the offense needs to step up a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about this offense, especially the offensive line, as it regards to Emory Jones, who was activated for the first time this year. Talk about what that could mean for this offense moving forward and what it could have meant for this offense in this game next here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup for a loss. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Again, we are here talking Ravens football as the Ravens take down the Jets. I know it's a little bit somber here in the first part of the show, but the Ravens did, in fact, win the football game and get to 6-5 here, above 500 for the first time this season. I want to let you know also that the Ravens, Locked On Ravens Squad Show is here twice a week. We'll have a show on Thursday upcoming. We usually have it on Wednesdays and on Sundays, but because the Ravens play on Thursday, we'll have a Locked On Ravens show on Thursday after the Ravens hopefully take down the Cincinnati Bengals, which we'll get into at the end portion of this episode. But talking again about this New York Jets-Ravens game and how the offensive line, kept the Ravens from moving the ball forward, in my opinion, made Lamar Jackson very uncomfortable, and because of that, he threw another sub-200-yard outing against an AFC foe and the New York Jets that I thought would, play a little bit better. I think overall, I thought Lamar Jackson would. But the Ravens talked about it this week. They are trying to expedite the services of Emory Jones. He gets activated in this game. Pretty much knew there was no chance for him to play in this contest. We thought maybe a rotation or two, but no Emory Jones in this contest, none at all. His activation does lead me to believe they're trending in the right direction. Q, what are your thoughts about Emory Jones' activation? Is this a sign of things to come, or is this just another step in the overall game planning for getting Emory Jones acclimated to life in the NFL?
I mean, I guess if you want to say, Ben Cleveland inactive, therefore we got to have somebody active. We're going to have Emory Jones active. Okay. It's just, what are we doing here? Like, we're hyping ourselves up, man. I mean, the bottom line is Kelechi Osemele is not coming through that door. Marshall Yanda, his picture and his name is up on the Ring of Honor. He ain't coming through that door either. We're just seeing who we're seeing. Ben Grubbs is not coming through that door. We got who we got, and it doesn't look good. That's just how it is. And so, yeah. Emory Jones, I think it's meaning that he passed Ben Cleveland on the depth chart. Boy, I feel great. Like, that's terrific. That's about it. Okay. Ooh, you did something.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point. They're not going to change anything while they're winning. I think that's pretty evident, apparent. I mean, I guess if things were going so poorly during a game, there's the opportunity that maybe Emery could be inserted in there, and obviously, if a guy were to go down, it's no longer Cleveland because he's inactive, and now be Emery Jones who would get in there and play in that action, and I guess we'd see it that way. But the Ravens at this point feel like they're pretty stuck with their guys. We saw plays by Voorhees today that weren't great. Obviously a couple of penalties on, Faalele, Linderbaum, like some of those that you're just kind of like, okay, Stanley was mad after that Faalele false start in the red zone that essentially caused them because they were going for the end. They were all right. Let's pick up this first down.
It was like fourth and 2 or 4th and 3. KO. Do you remember? It was doable. Like it was doable.
Yeah, I think it might have been 4th and 2.
I think it was 4th and 2. Yeah. But it was doable. Like it was an opportunity to go for it.
Yeah, it was 4th and 3. 4th and 3. All right, so it was 4th and 3.
Okay.
Sure. Even still, yeah. I mean, like those are things you definitely have to clean up. I thought we saw some positives today, but it's still a lot of negative. And that to me is I guess get 1% better every week, but at this point you got to get like 20% better every week. It's kind of where they are right now. So things you got to clean up. But again, it's just like a lot of quick pressures, and the Jets have some dudes. And you're talking about next week against Cincinnati, where Trey Hendrickson, I'm not sure his availability for this game, if he's gonna go out there or not. But if they don't have Hendrickson and, Shamar Stewart's now out, like, this will be an opportunity, hopefully, against a bad Bengals defense to go out there. Because, look, the Browns are a great defense. They're an awesome defense. The Jets, they're a middling to not so good defense. If you can't put up numbers against the Bengals defense, you're just cooked. You're just done. Like, it is what it is. If you can't do anything against that Bengals defense, I don't know what to tell you. Because that's the worst defense you're probably going to play for the remainder of the season. And I'll just throw this out there, by the way. Ravens and their missed tackles on defense, that's another huge concern for me. They're missing a lot of tackles defensively. The two worst missed tackle teams in the NFL this season are the Bengals and the Steelers. So those are two teams that you need to take advantage of. Get I know Lamar's not healthy, but hopefully he can get his shiftiness on a little bit more. Or, Henry forces Zay juking up and down and north and south and east and west, like him getting some plays in there. But it all comes down to the O-line and what they can do. It's looking rough right now. I see Kieran talking about, I'd rather win ugly than lose pretty, but dang, do we look rough? Yeah, it's been rough these past couple of weeks. And I just think it was, and I put this out on social media right at the end of the first half. I said it on the watch along. It's like that first half against the Jets was 10 times more embarrassing than anything they did against the Browns, because it's the Jets, and at least we know the Browns have a good defense, and that defense is elite. The Jets don't have a good defense, and they traded away their two best players on defense, and the offense still looks like that. So these slow starts can't happen as consistently as they do. This isn't just offensive line, but as a whole for this offense, because you play better offenses where, like you've said, the Ravens the Ravens defense did what they were supposed to do in these games against teams like the Browns and the Vikings and the Jets. You're going to have maybe Joe Burrow walk through that door next week. You're going to have Drake May, Aaron Rodgers / Mason Rudolph, which isn't, okay, that's all right. We can pump the brakes on those guys. But other than that, you got Jordan Love, who again can be up and down, but even those guys,
yeah,
it's a lot more of a challenge than what you've seen with a JJ McCarthy, who looked terrible again today, or a Dylan Gabriel / Shadur Sanders with like half of with not even any preparation. And then obviously Tyrod Taylor, who was more of a wild card today, did make some good throws and guys were getting open, but you have to be able to start quicker on the offensive side of the ball and more quickly on the offensive side of the ball, because if you don't, you're playing better offenses. The defense has done a really good job of keeping the offense attached in these moments where they're struggling, saying, hey, just go out there, score one touchdown. We're still in this thing. We take the lead or we tie the game. Against better offenses, like remember what happened in that Bills game in the playoffs last year, where the Ravens started slow and the Ravens defense couldn't hold on against the Bills. Remember what happened 2 years ago in the AFC Championship game where the Ravens defense shut out the Chiefs in the second half of that championship game, but it was bad in the first half. The Ravens offense couldn't get it going. It was too little too late. So you need to be able to start quicker on offense. That's my rant. I didn't do it as good as Q, but that's my rant.
Well done, Mr.
Thank you.
Ranter. And I will say that it comes down to your desire and your want to and your will. And I know that Tyrod Taylor, I mean, there were some plays that he had that another quarterback that is playing above his level, and he clearly was playing way above Justin Fields' level, but above his level. I mean, they're gonna make this defense pay. And it's interesting because Marlon Humphrey, he knew that. He was talking about the missed tackles. I mean, as much as he loved the fact that they punched the ball out in the red zone and prevented Breece Hall from scoring, who was having a really fine performance on that drive up until that punch out. But bigger picture wise, yeah, you go up against those elite quarterbacks, they're going to make you pay. They're just not going to sit back and allow you to, take your foot off the gas pedal and think, oh, we arrived. They're going to be throwing some accurate balls into their receivers. It won't be late. You're going to have Nate Wiggins have to pick off a pass when it comes your way. All of it. They were running some simple concepts, the Jets were, and the run after catch was just ridiculous. So lots of work to be done for sure for this defense, especially when you talk about the AFC North, number one. Number two, you talk about the better quarterback play that you're going to be facing, these final stretches of games.
Yeah, and Kyle Hamilton, was a little banged up after this Jets game with a little under 2 minutes to go in the contest. He went to the locker room, but man, it'll be a very different defense without Kyle Hamilton, in my opinion. I'm curious to see what the Ravens decide to do. They did give up some plays when Kyle Hamilton was out, but the pass rush was also surprisingly getting to Tyrod Taylor. Again, we mentioned the QBs are going to be a lot more difficult coming up with potentially Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers upcoming with his Ravens squad. I think this defense has what it takes against these guys. I think Thursday will be a very good indicator for this offense, or I should say this defense one way or another. But I think the pass rush look pretty decent, or do you still think it's Kyle Hamilton or bust with this defense moving forward as it pertains to the pass rush?
No. I don't think it's Kyle Hamilton or bust anymore. And let me say that, one of my keys to the game was this is a Jets offense that averaged 140 yards a pop. And they were, I believe, a top 5 rushing offense. They just weren't very good passing the ball, although they looked really good passing the ball in the first half. Anyway, okay, I'm not going to go on a rant about that. That being said, though, I will say this: the Dre'Mont Jones, my goodness, man! Like, as much as people thought Adafe almost was doing his thing, oh, look what he did in the Chargers. Oh, when he got some sacks. Now you're seeing why they got Dre'Mont Jones. Clearly, his ability, even Mike Green has certainly stepped up, but back to Dre'Mont Jones, like his ability to get to the quarterback, sacked him twice, and just really was unrelenting within the pressure schemes that they put on the offense. And I thought the finish for that second sack was critical. That fourth quarter finish, you needed to finish the game and seal it. You sealed it with that fourth quarter finish. That was awesome. At the same time, yes, again, back to what we saw from the up front guys and Travis Jones. So the Jones brothers, they were having a day. Stopping the run, he was critical at key moments in time where they needed to, kind of gather back some momentum. He had some good opportunities to make some hay. I think, let me look up his stats real quick. Yeah, he had 5 tackles and had that critical tackle for loss. So he was really active. I just think overall, this was a defense that was, getting in the face of Tyrod Taylor, had the 3 sacks, had the 4 tackle for losses, and again, creating turnovers. Again, what is this, 5 weeks in a row where they were able to, make something happen within the turnover battle. And I think that has really been, one of the telltale bright spots for the way the Ravens defense and Zach Orr has been able to transform what started off as a bleak looking defense into a formidable one when it comes to, yes, turnovers, and when it comes to just, coming up with clutch plays. So Alohi Gilman absolutely has to work on some of those missed tackles. However, I do love the way both he and Marlon have been active and active hands of being just mindful of trying to strip the ball away and also recovering those particular strips.
Yeah, I mean, the pass rush has definitely evolved past just, sending Kyle Hamilton on blitzes and hoping that works. I mean, yes, the Dre'Mont Jones aspect has been awesome. He's been incredible. And now with just half a sack more and Ravens making the playoffs, that 5th-round pick turns into a 4th-round pick that Tennessee would get because of the conditions of that trade. So, that's what the Ravens want, right? They want him to rack up sacks. They want him to make the playoffs. Like that's why they made the trade to bring him in the first place. So winning one-on-ones, Travis Jones, Mike Green, like all those guys stepping up and making impact. I mean, Mike Green had a beautiful cross-chop move that he hit Tyrod Taylor, and that actually disrupted a throw that A.D. Mitchell had Chidobe Awuzie beat down the sideline for a touchdown, and Mike Green hit Taylor as that ball was coming out, and that ball just sails out of bounds. Like, those are the types of big plays now where we're finally starting to see, because the Ravens early in this season were terrible at rushing the passer without blitzing. They needed to send pressure. They needed it to get there, or else they were done. But we started to see the evolution. I think Dre'Mont Jones has changed a lot of that. Obviously, other guys are stepping up and playing well also. But, I mean, with all the stuff they still need to improve defensively, they did what they were supposed to do. That's my favorite line. And it's true. It's what they were supposed to do. And keeping them attached. I mean, again, there were some plays to John Mechie and some runs by Breece Hall and whatnot. But, you can't expect a defense to just be perfect in every single game. There are going to be moments like that. But the Humphrey play won them this game, in my opinion, alongside Jordan Stout. And, I think that play in particular where Breece was tearing you up, he was beating you down, and you were able to get that huge play. And Marlon celebrating was, he was fired up, but I think it was also just relieved. Like, all right, let's go. And, finger feeling all right now. Like, that's the type of play that we know Marlon can make that type of play. So this defense now is a turnover machine, I guess. They couldn't force a turnover to save their life over the first month and a half of the season. Now they have 5 straight games with a turnover. And look at that. The Ravens are on a 5-game win streak. So what's the key? Forcing turnovers. Look at how that works out, guys. Turnovers make a difference. Look at that.
Let's make sure that they are doing that in the postseason. If the Ravens get there, of course, looking pretty good to do so after this 5-game win streak. Currently, 5-game, could be 6 games after Thursday. But yes, I believe that the Ravens are getting turnovers and doing what they have to do to make it to the postseason and have success there. Making it to the postseason means they have to win in the AFC North. When we come back, we'll talk about where the Ravens stand in the AFC North, as a couple of games in the AFC North, including the Ravens-Jets game, has already passed. We'll touch on all this next here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it is frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Gametime today. All right, we're back here with the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, talking Ravens football. Ravens do, in fact, pick up the win over the New York Jets, beating them 23-10. Ravens defense holding opponents to under 20 points basically every single game now. The 3 safety sets working rough as much more this beginning of the season. Looked very good now currently. Let's see what happens against the Ravens, upcoming against the Cincinnati Bengals. But there are other games in the AFC North to talk about. The Ravens have to play the Bengals, Steelers, Next, the Steelers lose to the Bears, we mentioned as well. The Bengals lost to the Patriots. So lots and lots of losses upcoming for the AFC North currently. I think the Browns are currently winning against the Raiders unless something's changed. Kevin, these losses, how are they going to help out the Ravens upcoming? Do you feel better about the Ravens' chances now that you've seen the Steelers fall to a Bears team that the Ravens beat and the Bengals lose to a Patriots team that puts them, I believe, at 8 losses already in the season?
Yeah, I mean, I still think that this is the Ravens division to lose now. And, obviously with the lead, it's easy to say that. But, at this point, like the Bengals defense is so awful. It's so awful. And with T. Higgins not being able to play in this upcoming game, potentially, Trey Hendrickson not being able to play in this upcoming game, potentially. Yes, you're getting Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow back, possibly. But, I would hope that the Bengals are a big bounce back spot for the Ravens offense with that defense, because like I said, if you're not doing it against the Bengals defense, I don't know who you're doing it against. So this is the opportunity for them to step up. With Pittsburgh, I mean, you kind of throw everything out the window for those games, honestly. Like those games are so weird every single year where, the Steelers get swept by Ryan Mallett in a season. Rest in peace to Ryan Mallett. Or, the Ravens lose weird games to Pittsburgh that they shouldn't lose because the Ravens are a better team. Like you have games like that every single season. Pittsburgh defense is not what it once was. They still have the names and the star power, but they just aren't meshing together well this year, it feels like. And, with George Pickens not there anymore, who was a thorn in the Ravens side, not quite up to that AJ Green level that we've been talking about here, but he was someone that would always seem to make a big play against the Ravens. He's in Dallas now, and DK hasn't had that same impact that George Pickens had in Pittsburgh. So, I mean, I think that there's these are better teams than what they've faced in recent weeks. So it's going to be more of a challenge, especially knowing that it's an AFC North game and the stakes and whatnot. But, I just have to hope that the Ravens, they're just a team that plays up or down to opponents like that. It just is what it is. The Ravens play down to opponents. They play up to opponents. And I hope that with the stakes being what they are, they'll be able to do that because they control their destiny here. They don't need help right now in the North. If they just win out, they win. There's nothing anybody can do about it. So the only team that's standing in their way right now is themselves because I don't expect this team to get the 1 seed. They're not in conversation for that, especially with the tiebreakers they lost early in the season. So I think that if you just go out there, do your job, perform well, I think they'll be okay, but they still have to answer a lot of the questions we've talked about.
I think overall, we're looking at an opportunity to play against teams in the AFC North that they themselves have their own issues. Meanwhile, in Pittsburgh, you got Mason Rudolph that's not playing bad, but certainly he's not like, a world beater. Their defense has let them down. You talk about what bigger picture is when it comes to the Bengals, and yet it's tough when it comes to the bigger picture of it's the Bengals. You always have these weird games with the Bengals. And so I just think that you can't take any team for granted. You're playing better than your division opponents. Yet this 3-game stretch, it's your season, period. It's your season. You handle it, boom, you're good. You don't, well, now you take everything out of your control and you go to if this happens and that happens and this happens and over there and divide by the quotient of the reciprocal nature of the carry the two, then KO will be able to give you $1. 4 quarters or maybe 2 dimes and a nickel. We'll see. That's what is at stake right now. The dollar. Because if he can give you $1, that's better than having no dollars, 2 dimes and a nickel to complete it, to make it $1.25.
I don't know where I'm getting this money from.
You got the money, man.
I don't know where I'm getting this money from. Maybe Lamar. I know Lamar. If Lamar can let me hold $1, then I'll give that $1 to somebody else. How about that?
Nick Moore is going to loan you 50 cents. Yeah. He'll give you 2 bits, and then you'll be like, oh, buddy, here we go. 2 of them. Gonna rub them together. Bam! All of a sudden, we're gonna just go ahead. Thanksgiving tryptophan. Make sure you have the cranberry sauce. If you don't have the cranberry sauce, we're just done. We ain't having it.
Oh.
Okay? Don't try to deep fry the turkey and all of a sudden have it explode on you. Boom, let's just go ahead, make sure the turkey is nice and juicy, and we'll be all right. The biscuits have to be homemade. Don't give me all that. Go to the store, get that buttery nastiness with the seed oil that's just going to wreck us. Okay? We ain't trying to have all that. We're trying to have Keaton Mitchell type homemade, speedy awesomeness of biscuits. Okay? We're trying to have the Travis Jones turkey leg, not some dried out mashed potatoes either. Okay? So let's go ahead and get the Charlie Polar type mashed potatoes.
There you go.
And then, of course, for dessert, we better have some pancake pat doing some things. You hear me? Let's just do this the right way.
I love it. I love it. Not to mention that, at least myself, we're both going to be home for Thanksgiving before the game. Q, you're going to be at M&T Bank Stadium. We need to, just kind of compare foods, what we have in our plates here. Yep. Unless, of course, Kevin, you're not going to have dinner before the game starts. I'm going to have dinner ready to go.
I'm going to try.
We're streaming. Oh, yeah. So let's go compare.
Man, all I know is what happens. Mags with her 420 saying, or whomever it is, the low corn syrup cranberry sauce, I'm down with you on that. Yes, definitely. The low corn syrup, no corn syrup, and the stevia, we'll just keep that over to the side. We won't include it. But see, while I'm up in this press box right here, we're going to have some eating on that field as I'm watching and observing like, oh, buddy. Yeah, I know all of y'all going to be tripping. Y'all gonna be like, Kadri, you can't have none of our food. And I'm be like, that's okay. Cause then all of a sudden, as the Bengals are losing, and I'm gonna be like, yeah. And I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I have a little piece of something. Stuffing. I'm gonna have some stuffing. Because why? Ooh, we're gonna have Marlon Humphrey go ahead and stuff it up in there, and all of a sudden, bam, just gonna punch the ball out. Ball gonna be fumbling all over the place, and all of a sudden, boom, Alohi Gilman, he's gonna pick it up, he's gonna take it into the end zone. We're gonna be like, what happened was, and I'm like, yeah. Now don't do the ocean spray. It is definitely terrible. We ain't trying to have the ocean spray. No. It's too highly processed.
Lamar needs the turkey leg at the end. He needs the turkey leg.
Lamar needs the turducken. Let's get the
that's what it is. That's right.
Yes. That's what we're talking about. Let's do this.
That is going to be crazy. Well, we're going to be definitely having fun on Thanksgiving. And when we come back, we'll touch on that Ravens-Bengals matchup on Thanksgiving night. We'll get our predictions. And no game just ended. Bengals just finished losing. Ravens just finished winning. But let's get some talking about what this game could be on the field and what it could mean for the standings for both teams heading up next here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. We're back. Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Available twice a week. Wednesdays usually, but now we'll have it on Thursday, post-game show. And then again on the following Monday, getting ready for the upcoming matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wow, what a crazy couple of games upcoming for the Ravens. Will have huge implications both on the conference and the division. But Ravens, Bengals, Thursday night football. It's going to be crazy. Joe Burrow potentially coming back, maybe coming back. We saw what this team looked like without Joe Burrow. Can make an assumption that if Joe Burrow played against the Patriots, they probably would have won. But want to get your thoughts. Q, I'll start with you. Ravens, Bengals. I know game just ended. You don't have to go too deep into predictions, but we've seen this team before. 2 big-time matchups last year. Another chance here on Thursday Night Football for the Ravens to get a win against the Cincinnati Bengals. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, A1 primetime movies. I'm right there with you. If T. Higgins is in concussion protocol, that's going to be a deadly blow. I think, Sam, what we know is that this Bengals offense can have that explosive capability in a moment's notice. At the same time, we also recognize that their defense is a porous defense and gives up big play after big play and just I mean, it looks awful. So, with that said, yes, we are looking for this defense to have its redemption to the point where Marlon Humphrey was like, look, I'm looking to have the greatest Thanksgiving ever. Because why? We all know what happens when he and Jamar Chase get together. Jamar just be schooling them. I'll be like, what are we doing here? Oh, Jamar, go ahead and have another 100-yard game. Oh, you're gonna press, and then as you press him, he's gonna just break that, and all of a sudden, and he takes it for 6. Oh man, I mean, yeah, we definitely sitting there just saying to ourselves, self, okay, like let's hold on for dear life when Jamar Chase takes the field and 44 lines up on him. Hopefully there's a safety over top of him and they double team him. I get it, Mags 420. Double team and Chase is everything. Let somebody else beat you.
Yep, let somebody else beat. Yep, let somebody else beat you. That's it. That's all you have to do. You know, and the Ravens actually struggled with that at times last season. I remember Davante Adams. We were talking, all right, Davante Adams is the only player on the Raiders. But let somebody else beat you, and then Davante Adams goes crazy. Or Jamar a couple times. I mean, Jamar loves playing the Ravens. The Ravens are his favorite team to play. 200-yard games, multi-touchdown. Like, it's unbelievable. So even if Burrow comes back again, like that Bengals defense. Actually, let me pull up their stats real quick. Bengals stats 2025, because that defense again, like they're without Hendrickson, or I assume he's going to be inactive in this game. We'll see. But the Bengals have coming into this week, had the second worst passing defense in the league and the third worst rushing defense. They're horrendous. They're a terrible defense. Their conversion rates are also awful. They're the second worst third down defense in the league. They're the third worst red zone defense in the league. They're awful on fourth down too. These are like Ravens from week 1 to week 6 stats defensively. They're the worst scoring defense in the league. They've given up the most yards in the league. Worst points per drive. Worst yards per drive. I could go on about how awful this Bengals defense is. So like I have said, if you can't get it going against this Bengals defense, you're not getting it going against anybody else, because this is the bounce back game. These next 2 games, that Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, where you have the Cincinnati back-to-back, or I guess sandwich, it's the Cincinnati sandwich, I guess, right? With the bread being the Bengals and the Steelers being the lunch meat. You know, you have an opportunity to get back on track. And like we saw with the defense, like, against the Rams, yes, the Rams made mistakes in that game, but the Ravens defense, they started to put the pieces together in that game. They had another bye week. They figure some things out. And then now we see the defense playing the way that they have. Like, it's been good for them. But it started, I think, with that Rams game of getting confidence. So all it takes is a game, I think, to get your confidence back. And so if you can get that back this week against the Bengals and kind of carry that momentum into the remainder of the season, you're going to be in a good spot. But you need to do it this week, because if you don't get going against this Bengals defense with how bad they've been and how poor they've been, you're in pretty big trouble there.
I would be discouraged if the offense in there at least put up a better effort than it did the last 2 weeks against this Bengals defense. As you mentioned, horrible on all facets. Hopefully, I would want to see the run game get going. I think something we haven't really seen all season. I think against the Browns, they average over a little under 6 yards a carry with Derrick Henry, which is very surprising considering how great that defensive line was against the Ravens offensive line. Still had success. I think that's because they're just pinning their ears back going after Lamar. But I would love to see this Ravens offense rushing attack get things going, because it would do so much for Lamar Jackson as the passer, as well as get this run game going and, keep the ball away from Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers, 2 guys who, may not have played. Joe Burrow hasn't played all season. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers, has been middling this season, to say the least. But, yeah, I think the rushing game will be a big difference. Now, let's get to the defense. The Ravens defense last year, terrible against, as you mentioned, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, this Cincinnati Bengals offense. And I think that was the catalyst to change the way the defense played on the Zachary Orr, more of a too high safety look for the remainder of the season last year. This year, the Ravens struggled prior to the Bengals game, switch it over before the Bengals game to a 3 safety look. Now it looks like they're getting things under control. How confident are you that this Ravens defense is up to the task against the Bengals offense last year, as we all know, gave them fits to the point that Zachary Orr had to makeshift the entirety of this defense? Q, I'll start with you.
Kyle Hamilton looked great today, except for two plays. One, when Brees Hall was like, I am all muscle, and you're going to try to tackle me, and your shoulder is going to either get a stinger, which looked like, or it is just that muscle is like, oh my God. And the second one, and I'm not smiling as in joy, but I'm like, I know what that feels like. But the second one was when he was trying to avoid Tyrod Taylor as he went down for a quarterback slide, and he got his foot caught in the turf, and he looked like Tyrod's leg kind of hit into his ankle, and he, looked like he tweaked it. So I am confident if Thursday means that he's going to be out there on the field. I am confident when I also see 41 and 45 getting to the quarterback the way they have been. I am confident when 98 shows up and stuffs to run. I am confident when number 12 is sitting back there roaming around doing what he does. I am confident when 44 shows up and is like, all right, bet we going to get a turnover on this. I'm confident when my boy TJ Tampa, when he gets an opportunity, he takes advantage of his opportunity. It's about the opportunities, period, across the board, all those numbers, whether it be Marlon, Alohi, TJ, Mike Green, if it's, Dre'Mont Jones, all those guys, it's the ability for this defense to continue to play with a high level of enthusiasm that they've been playing with and making sure that they're just assignment sound. That's the confidence that I have in this defense, with the big asterisk of work still left to be done.
Yeah, there is. And there's a lot to be said about this defense right now. We obviously know Kyle Hamilton is kind of the lifeblood of it. And if he has to miss this game, it's going to be tough. But again, another mostly incredible performance by this group. But again, Ja'Marr Chase is going to be one of the best receivers you've played in recent weeks. Obviously, Justin Jefferson being another. The difference is that, who's going to be throwing him the ball. If it is whichever Joe it is, Joe Flacco or Joe Burrow, it's going to be a lot better than JJ McCarthy was in that game of getting him the football. They have a couple of other guys that can make an impact as well. But the Bengals offensive line also has been a point for years of being bad. And while, I think the defense is more of a problem, which I think says something about the state of that team. To me, that team is kind of held together right now by Ja'Marr Chase, Joe Burrow, and T. Higgins. And it's a lot of guys, and Trey Hendrickson, I guess, too, but it's a lot of other guys that just are not great. And they've invested a lot, and they decided to sign both Chase and Higgins the big deals, which, that limited their ability. And you don't let Chase leave the building, obviously. That's a guy you absolutely sign. But he decided to go with Higgins over probably more defensive playmakers or better offensive line help. And, that's a team right now that, after losing to the Patriots and having all these losses on the season, do these games really mean all that much to them anymore? I mean, they're still going to play for pride, still going to play for, jobs and stats or whatever you want to play for. But, in terms of playoffs, they're pretty cooked. It's there's not really a realistic shot that they make the postseason, especially with so many teams being in the hunt in the AFC right now. So I think offensively, if Baltimore can continue to pressure, and Joe Burrow has sneaky mobility. Joe Flacco does not, but Joe Burrow has sneaky mobility. And so, you have to be able to obviously make him uncomfortable out there. But if he's back, how healthy is he truly? I truly do not know, with the extent of the injury he had and his recovery timeline. A lot of people said, oh, could he come back in December or whatever? I don't know how healthy Joe Burrow is. And so we're going to have to see if he does play. Seems like that's where, with the full practices and whatnot, are they gearing him up for this Thanksgiving game? Feels like that is probably the case, but I'd test it early. I mean, I would blitz him early. I'd send a ton of pressure at him, see how he responds to that. If he handles it well, then all right, you can readjust your game plan. If he doesn't, and just keep going at him like the Dolphins did to Lamar in 2021 and say, all right, you can't handle it. Well, we're just going to do it until you beat us. And if you can't beat us, well, good luck tonight. And that's going to be the conversation that I would have with my defense if I were Zach Orr. Bring the heat, bring the pressure, and make Joe Burrow make plays. And we know he can when he's fully out there and doing his thing. I mean, Joe's a good quarterback, but with that injury, how mobile is he going to be? We've seen it firsthand with Lamar Jackson, injuries. Burrow's obviously had the time to recover back from his injury,
Great
right?
point.
But we've seen it. Lamar doesn't look like himself out there. If Joe's trying, and I'm not saying Joe's rushing back. I don't know if he is or not. But if he is, and he's not going to be as mobile as we're used to seeing from him, or if he's not going to be able to step into throws or whatever it is with that foot, then, that's going to cause problems for him. Much like we've seen with Lamar Jackson, with him nursing his injury. So it's definitely a two-way street there. But I do have confidence in Baltimore's defense, as long as Kyle Hamilton's out there, because we've seen this defense without Kyle Hamilton. It's not a pretty sight.
Mm-mm.
Not at all. And I like your analysis of Joe. I mean, yeah, he's coming into a very similar situation as Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson had that injury, didn't play on that Sunday prior to the Thursday night game against the Miami Dolphins. Came back in Miami, threw 4 touchdowns, but it was the Dolphins. And since then, he hasn't looked all that great. I think Joe Burrow could be in a similar situation here. Could he be rushing back? He's coming up on the timeline where you think he might start practicing, not actually going out there and playing, and against a hungry Ravens defense that gets pressure by blitzing. Ooh, could be tough sledding for the Cincinnati Bengals QB. I want to ask you guys to give me predictions. I won't do any of that because the game is on Thursday. I want to give you guys time to get your notes right and all that. So we're going to end it here. We're going to end it here in this broadcast, and we'll see Ravens flock here on Thursday after the Ravens-Bengals game on Thanksgiving. On behalf of myself, Kevin, and Q, I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays. Go out there, get your full turkey, your turkey, all of that stuff, your tryptophan.
No spray.
No ocean spray. As Q and Kevin mentioned, none. Keep all of that away from you and get it together as we get ready for this Ravens-Bengals matchup here on Thursday. Appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will see you on Thursday.